Thanks. And then our last presenter this morning is Maria Gorgo-Gourovitch from Penn State. And she will also be talking about an FSOP project that she has.
Hi, good morning. My name is Maria Gorgo-Gourovitch. I'm a horticulture extension educator with Penn State. And I have the privilege to work with vegetable fruit growers and also mushroom growers in Pennsylvania. I also am very passionate about helping Penn State enhance its outreach efforts to the Latino community. And this project is related to that. I'm originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and there are a lot of Hispanic growers and farm workers, especially in Pennsylvania and other parts of the country, and I think this project will help them understand a little bit more about food safety and the produce safety rule. So first, I would like to give you some important demographic statistics at the national and regional level. According to the 2010 National Census, Hispanics of all races are the largest minority in the country, representing 16% of the total U.S. population. Between 2000 and 2010, the Hispanic population grew by 43%, accounting for 55.5% of the nation's growth since 2000. As reported in the USDA 2012 census, Hispanics may make up the largest demographic of new farmers in the nation. From 2007 to 2012, there was a 21% increase in the number of farms owned by Latinos. In Pennsylvania, there are 652 farms operated by Hispanic farmers. This is a 24% growth since 2007. In addition, Spanish is mainly the native language of farm workers at 81%. Only 66% of US-born Latino farm workers said they could read and write English well. The number drops to 4% of Mexican-born Hispanics. The 21% increase in the number of Hispanic farmers in the 2012 US Census of Agriculture, paired with the lack of understanding of English among many farm workers, suggests that there is an unsatisfied demand for agricultural education, and in our case, for food safety and good agricultural practices, information, education, and resources. So let me tell you a little bit more about Pennsylvania. There are 67 mushroom farms in Pennsylvania. Last year, Pennsylvania farms produced 524.5 million pounds of mushrooms, leading the nation in production. Now, first or second generation Mexican Americans make up the workforce of the mushroom industry. This is actually 90% of the workforce is Hispanic. And of the 11,000 employees, we estimate that 10,000 of them are Hispanic. In addition, the Pennsylvania apple industry ranks 4th in the nation, and apples are grown in all 67 counties, with the greatest concentration being in Adams County, which annually contributes $580 million to the economy. In this case, first or second generation Latinos make up the majority of the fruit industry workforce, and many have moved into management positions. Now, the produce safety rule requires training at 2 levels. At least one supervisor or responsible party on the farm must have successfully completed the PSA training, and also the regulation further states that all personnel who handle produce or food contact surfaces must receive farm food safety and hygiene training upon hiring, and at least once annually. Training must be conducted in a manner that is easily understood by those being trained. So like I said, we have been doing several different trainings and programming, in bilingual programming. And during recent trainings conducted by Penn State Extension, the Hispanic or Latino growers, supervisors, and farm workers communicated to us that the Produce Safety Alliance curriculum is hard for them to grasp in a one-day training session. And they asked us to conduct shorter, simpler, and individual trainings in Spanish on good agriculture practices and in food safety content. With that in mind, we submitted a grant proposal to USDA NEPA, and the goal of this pilot project is to continue to work closely with the community stakeholders to determine the knowledge gaps in food safety programming and to prepare educational materials and deliver trainings in Spanish to help Hispanic growers and farm workers understand some of the concepts included in the PSA curriculum. So the grant objectives are to create a focus group for good agriculture practices, education in Spanish, to develop culturally appropriate outreach and educational materials, develop good agriculture practices training programs in Spanish, and finally, to increase knowledge or adoption by all trainees of farm food safety practices and requirements. During the duration of this project, we met with growers and stakeholders, and we determined food safety training needs and priorities for bilingual GAPS materials and programming. The stakeholders in the partnership also determined audiences for whom GAPS education training is a priority. In addition, we assessed, reviewed, and adapted existing educational materials, such as fact sheets, brochures, posters, and PowerPoint training presentations. And finally, we created new educational materials and delivered training in Spanish on topics identified by these focus groups. And the topics are the three that are listed in the slide. A, introduction to GAPS, B, workers' health and personal hygiene, and C, introduction to pathogens to the environment, pre- and post-harvest sources of contamination. Important to say that it was really important for the workers and the growers to have some sort of paper that would say what they did, and we handed out certificates with the information of the topics that were taught in that session, and that certificate is bilingual. That's something that they were really interested in, because if they go to another farm, if it's in Spanish, it's nice that they can read it, but the farm owner can't. So they're very proud of it. Actually, one of the growers and I'm going to show you the slides later, one of the growers in Adams County, fruit grower, apple grower, he put them in a frame for each one of his employees. They were so proud of it. So, as of February 2019, we have offered several trainings. During the 2018 President's Day Fruit Growers School in Biglerville, Pennsylvania, we organized a Spanish session, and we delivered many presentations. Some were on new FDA, like a general presentation on new FDA FSMA requirements. We talked about microorganisms. We talked about introduction to good agriculture practices. And also, in addition, it's not only just food safety, but we offer other presentations like the new worker protection standard requirements. In this case, we had 3 educators, 36 participants, and like I said, 4 presentations. Then in Chester County, I was talking about this with some people here today. Pennsylvania is the first producer of mushrooms. We have about 65-70% of the country, the nation's production. California second. And the farms are concentrated in 2 counties, which are Chester County, Kennett Square, probably heard about it, and then in Berks County, there's a big mushroom grower called Georgie Mushrooms. So here, during the food safety training for mushroom growers and packers in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, we also organized a Spanish session, and we deliver also information on on microorganisms, sources and conditions of contamination, and personal hygiene, cleaning and sanitation, and also a brief introduction to HACCP. We had 2 educators, 20 participants. This one I'm especially proud of because we had a training in Spanish as well on April 7th in Adams County, mainly peach and apple growers. We had 85 participants. There were so many people in the room that we had to pull chairs from other rooms, and yeah, that was just people were standing there. We asked educators that were watching just not to sit down. We needed the chairs. So 85 people, and we had 2 field demonstrations. There were 3 educators, native speakers, and just it was wonderful. And the way that, if you have never been to one of these sessions, it's very, in my case, it's, I feel very accomplished because they do open up, and Chris was having trouble this morning to engage people to say something. They really talk. That you can really see how Latin Americans are. You know, it's like we can really talk at the same time. Yeah. Another training. This is something interesting. So, in Pennsylvania we have 2, I would say 3, but I don't work with dairy, but that are very Hispanic audience that are very identifiable, and those are the apple and peach growers in Adams County, and then we have the mushroom growers in Chester and in Berks. But also, if you look at the USDA agriculture census, you can see that there are people that identify themselves as Hispanic, and they say that they are all over Pennsylvania. But the problem is that we don't know where they are sometimes. And I think that's a problem that also used to work for USDA and RCS, and that was the same problem. You know, where are they? And there are many reasons for that. Number one is that as an immigrant, you don't know what resources you have in the U.S. You don't know what extension means. There's no such a thing. And maybe in some countries, in Argentina, for example, it's done through the government, the Department of Agriculture, but there's no land-grant university system. So when you say 4-H, they have no idea what you're talking about, or extension, or master gardeners. There's nothing comparing to that. So it's hard for them to reach out to you if they don't know that you're there. So I think that one of the important things that we had to do, actually, the Lehigh Valley area, which is Allentown and Bethlehem, it's where the most Hispanics are currently in Pennsylvania. And we decided that we need to do something. We need to raise awareness of extension and what other resources from USDA are available, like FSA and RCS, right? And we did a community agriculture outreach effort to the community out there. We knew that in this case, many people actually, there were a lot of people that came after the hurricane in Puerto Rico that were settling there, and they were farming already. They might not even know, but they are a new and beginning farmer. So we had 6 educators, we had 2 master gardeners talking about their program, we had 4-H people, and we had 30 participants. And just last week, we did, this was the 10th anniversary of the Spanish session of the Mid-Atlantic Fruit and Vegetable Conventions. Maybe many of you have been there before. And we bring native speakers to this session. It's about everything you can possibly imagine related to agriculture. Most of the people that attend are fruit and vegetable supervisors and sometimes employees. And in this case, we talked about pre- and post-harvest sources of contamination and many other topics. Again, very engaged audience. We did a live demonstration with like how to prune apple trees, and it's just a really nice experience. And here you can see there's another picture with participating. I think we've been so successful, and it was the 10th year. We handed out a lot of different, goodies and stuff. We provided lunch, and we even have vendors coming talk. Then I wanted to talk to them. So we should charge for this, maybe. Yes, it was pretty good. There's a magazine in Washington State that now they're going bilingual, and they have an online version, but also they're printing. And Washington State is like way beyond us. I think we are trying to replicate what they're doing. So in the future, we are planning Produce Safety Alliance, Produce Safety Rule, Spanish training. That is going to be input in there, but it's on March 31st, and that's the flyer that we have about it. It's going to be 3 educators, myself, Lee Stivers, who is a retired Penn State Extension educator, who's also a lead trainer, and Beth Sastre. She's from Virginia Cooperative Extension, and she's going to come to help us. And I'm going to take the word of Chris that can help with some funding for travel and stuff like that. And then we're also going to be at the Tree Fruit Apple Growers School in Adams County again this year. And in this case, I'm going to talk about all the educational materials that we have available for people to find. Everything is in Spanish. Also, I'm going to attend Hispanic outreach event done by NRCS, and I'm going to talk about our educational materials available online. And then I'm also going to go to the food safety for mushroom growers and packers workshop that Luke is going to do in Glen Mills on March 18th. So what we have done actually is we want to enhance what we do, and before every event I put together like a press release, and I send it to all the local media, Lancaster Farming, Morning Act, Clips, and even local places. And also we put it on Facebook page and in social media, Instagram, everything we can do to promote the event. And then after that, we write an article, and this is like, this is the one in Adams County where we have 85 people. Also, I want to show you what we have done in the translation of existing and creation of new educational materials. Penn State has a new website that is under development. We're going to provide all this in the near future and put it in the clearinghouse. But first we have to put it in our website and see how that works because it's under development. So if you go to the Penn State Extension website, there's a search box, and there you put Farm Food Safety, and then you go to the Food Safety Modernization Act, and then you can scroll down and find the different rules. Here's the Produce Safety Rule, and if you click on the link down there, it will take you to the trainings, but also to the available educational materials that we have. What I've been working, and look, everybody in the team has been working, is on trying to put out like squares, so it's easier for people. We can provide just one link, and then they can find everything there. So one square would be for Spanish resources. It's important, I think, not only for people here in the U.S., but also for international audience. There are a lot of trainings going on in Latin America, so it would be important for them to find this information. So we have translated current educational materials, things that we had already. In this case, it was the tools for writing a farm food safety plan, and now it's available in Spanish as well, and it's online already. We also, some of the deliverables of the grants, was a new educational materials, and I apologize, I just realized that I put 2 spiral books. They're 2 spiral bound books. This is the Lost in Translation part of this. A friend told me you should put spiral bound books. Okay. So they are based on these 3 topics: introduction to good agriculture practices, workers' health and personal hygiene, and pre- and post-harvest sources of contamination. There's going to be one book this is going to be available online. So there's going to be one that is completely in English, and the other one is in Spanish, and actually has kind of like the notes in English and Spanish. We also are developing fact sheets. So this is like a packet, like a curricula. The 3 PowerPoints are kind of the base of everything, and based on this, we developed fact sheets that will mention the most important points of each PowerPoint. And so they're available in English and Spanish. Then we're also doing 6 Learn Now videos. That's how Penn State calls short videos, like 5-6 minutes. And basically talk about the content of the fact sheet. And then also with Luc Labor and his grant, we are developing posters that are going to be available online as well on good agriculture practices, and we're planning to print copies and distribute them to the farms. And I think that's it. Do you have any questions?